You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in a very special guest, but first, a message from our partners at CallRail. If you're investing in marketing and don't know which calls you're turning into real clients, you're leaving money on the table. CallRail helps law firms capture every call, even after hours, track exactly where your best cases come from, respond faster, and gain the insights you need to grow your practice. Never miss a call, never miss a case, never miss that big client with our friends at CallRail. Hit me up if you need the link. Happy to provide it. Now back to our special guest, Sydney Segal, Brooklyn public defender, competitor on CBS's Survivor 41 and The Challenge on MTV. Sydney ultimately found her calling in criminal defense, dedicating her career to protecting the rights of the pretrial population and defending the principle of innocent until proven guilty. While in law school, she developed an innovative partnership between Uber and the Los Angeles County Alternative Public Defender's Office to help low-income clients get to court. Sydney's also a Division I athlete at Columbia University, world traveler and speaker of 4 languages. Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction.
Well, I could have gone on and on. I felt like I needed to cut it down a little bit. It was a couple pages here, but I did cut it down. But such a talented young lady. We're happy to have you. You have a lot to share, a lot of cool things you're doing. So how are you?
I'm great. We had a nice day in court today. You know, the summer schedule is pretty light. You know, no judge wants to put anything really on the calendar. So, you know what, things are going great right now, but you never know. The job's all about putting out little fires everywhere sometimes.
It is. That's how it feels like. I know what you're saying. So tell us about, like, you're from LA, right? Is that where you were born? Tell us where you were born and raised.
Yeah, I was born and raised in LA. I went through the Beverly Hills school system. So I went to Beverly Hills High School. And yeah, I'm definitely a California girl, even though at this point I'm just giving full New York energy after like 13 years away from the West Coast. I do still feel like a California girl at heart.
Yeah, I feel that. So you grew up with your father practicing law, is that correct?
Yes.
Like.
Yeah, I'm a 3rd generation Esquire. My grandfather was an entertainment attorney. He did like a lot of contract work with Universal, and he was there until they basically forced him to retire. You know, it's funny because He was like a man of like very few words, like very opposite of like the rest of my family. But when I told him I was going to law school, I've never seen him so jazzed in my life. Like that man loved the law. Because I know like so many lawyers are like, don't do it, take my advice, run away. Yeah. That was definitely not my family. Like my father also definitely enjoyed the practice of law, the stability of the work. He did tax and civil litigation. He did start in like not public defense, but like he was like on the panel. So he would, you know, represent the people who couldn't afford attorneys, but then get paid by the city. Right. But that's how we got a lot of the litigation experience until he did primarily tax litigation. And then, yeah, when I told him I wanted to go to law school, he's like, oh my God, 3rd generation.
Really? It's amazing. So like,
yeah.
What like prompted you to make the decision? Was there a moment? Was it kind of like, hey, like I want to do that? Like I want to go to.
You know, it was. I remember it wasn't something I ever kind of envisioned necessarily, but I just remember having an internship my senior year of college. I was doing like sales. I always did things in sales. I was a talker, whatnot, fundraising for Columbia, and I loved it, but I felt a little stagnant. I didn't feel like I was learning. I'm like, I feel like I learned what I need to learn in the first 3 weeks. And then I'm just like here. I'm like, I can't imagine doing this for the entire summer, let alone like 3 years, 4 years, my career.
Right.
And I thought of like, all right, let me just like take a step back. Like, what do I like? I'm like, okay, I do want to keep learning. I want to keep like adapting. I want to keep myself sharp. And I like crime shows. I'm like, I love crime. Like I've always just had an affinity for crime. Like when I was a Girl Scout and they're like, we're going to jail, I was stoked.
Yeah.
It's like probably honestly, like now looking back, it was probably like some central booking or something. But I was like, this is amazing. So I'm like, I can like do that. Like I can do that. So I'm like, I think I want to go to law school. So having gone to Columbia for undergrad, everyone's like, oh, law school, you're definitely going to go big law. And I'm like, yeah, duh. So I'm like, I'm definitely going to go corporate, even though I wanted to do crime. I'm simultaneously being brainwashed to be like, no, you're obviously going into big law. And I had interviewed for various paralegal jobs. Like I remember I interviewed at like Skadden and Davis Polk, and they're like, how do you feel about 80-hour work weeks? I'm like, and
80 hours? You mean over like 4 months? Is that?
No, like literally. And obviously, like, criminal lawyers, it's more of an ebb and a flow, I would say, but you're not obviously beholden to the billable hours. I just hated the vibe. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't get the jobs, because they could probably sniff right through me that I had way too much personality. Like they're probably like, oh no, she's way too fun for this, because those sticks in the mud do not have half the personality I have. So thank God I didn't get those jobs. But then so then I took a couple gap years. I ended up traveling a bit, worked abroad, took the LSAT, a lot of times. And I went into law school fully intent on going into criminal law. Fully intent. And because that's what I liked.
Yeah, I mean, that you did the right thing. You went with what you liked. So what was the transition like from LA to New York? Like when did that happen? Did that happen because you applied to Columbia and then, or were you in New York earlier than that?
So my first time visiting New York ever, or the East Coast ever, was visiting Columbia. Like I truly believed I was going to UCLA. I was like, somewhere in Southern California, not even Northern California. Like I have a big family. Everybody stayed local. Okay. Aunts and uncles, my cousins. My mom is like, California is a place people come to. People don't leave. Right. People leave when they don't like their families. You like your family. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And this is what was like, I don't know. I was being fed, for better or worse, but because of running, which was kind of a fluke, I got a lot of opportunities. So my junior year, I started running cross country, and I had made nationals that year. And then it's one of those things where like, if you're getting recruited for soccer or like lacrosse, football, you need like video and tapes and like a whole compilation of like your best moves. Track, they just like look at a list. So, all these recruiters are just looking at who made nationals and just sending the letters out. So for me, it was an accident, but it was like so lucky. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm looking at my grades. I'm like, all right, I'm probably going to like San Diego State or something. It's fine. Whatever, local. Yeah. Harvard's calling, Columbia's calling. Wow. I'm like, Stanford's calling, Berkeley's calling. I'm like, oh my God, I can go wherever. So I ended up winning state the next year in cross country. I was runner up in the 2 mile, and then I'd gotten like 5th in the mile, but I was all American. I don't even know, maybe 5 times.
This is high school you're talking.
This is high school. Okay. So because of this, I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to run, and I'm going to go somewhere I would never be able to get into without running. Right. So, and I also wanted to go somewhere where I didn't necessarily need a car. And then I had this like aha moment where I'm like, I can leave, and if I don't like it, I can come back. Yeah. Let me just, when I'm telling you, I don't even like know why. I just like had this like shift of mindset. Yep. It just happened. And so I went to Columbia, and I loved being in New York.
So hold on, Sydney, did you have family there? Did you have friends? Did you know anybody in New York?
I didn't know anybody in New York. Okay. But I knew I had my team, so I knew it was going to be easy to make friends. Yep. And my parents came out quite a bit my freshman year. They're like, we're worried you're going to drop out. I'm like, why? Like, I was never that kid that gave any sort of inkling that I would ever drop out.
So I'm sorry, I cut you off. So you go to New York and then talk to us.
I was there for, So I stayed. The idea was to go for a year, see if I liked it. If I liked it, stay for the 4. Loved it, stayed for the 4. And then I was like, I got to stay. But then I was like, honestly, New York's like not as fun when you're paying for it yourself. So I'm like, I'm going to leave. So I left, and I ended up teaching English abroad in Spain.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me get, So does Columbia running, does that come with a scholarship or no?
So no.
Okay.
Basically, like Ivy League is completely need based.
Gotcha.
So I got many full rides to run. But my parents were like, if you go Ivy, like that's the exception. Like we're not gonna pay
Gotcha.
because everything's free. But if you go Ivy, then it is need based and we'll pay, whatever the tuition comes out to
Yeah,
be.
makes sense.
Because I mean their mentality was the Sydney we talked to after attending Columbia is going to be much different than the Sydney we talked to after coming out of somewhere else, which, you know what, I don't know, just like the exposure you have to
Right.
different things
Sure.
and like different academics. And yeah, it was a great experience. And I feel like I learned more, outside of the classroom than in the classroom, which was my own fault. I was an athlete student, not a student athlete is what I said.
Right.
But the curriculum outside of the curriculum that you get just being in New
Yeah.
York and being amongst people that are just so much smarter than you it's humbling, and I wouldn't consider myself a humble person, but it was very humbling.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, so I did leave for 2 years for my gap years and I traveled. I worked on a farm in Australia. I worked teaching English abroad in Spain, bombed my LSAT when I was living there. Like I took it in Pamplona, the week before at the running with the bulls.
Yeah.
So obviously that didn't go well. So I moved back to the States to like get my life together, study, got into law school, immediately went traveling again, and then matriculated that fall, 2 years after I had graduated college, and I went to Brooklyn Law School.
Okay.
So I wanted to come back to New York, and the idea was to do 3 years, then go home. And then after the 3 years, I'm like, man, I just feel like I just scratched the surface of New York again. I kind of want to stay.
That's a big decision too, because you're like, where the hell do I take the bar? Like I remember having that problem too. Like I didn't know like where I wanted to really like settle. And like,
Right.
You're probably thinking like, if I want to do Cali, I got to do it now. Or then I don't know, maybe you have done it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was like, you know what? I felt like at that point I was going to take 2 bars anyway. And after like 4 years of being admitted and in good standing with the bar, you can take the attorney transfer exam in California.
That's it.
So I just kind of like already resigned myself to taking 2. And I was like, you know what? If I take California first, I'm only taking 1. If I take
Right.
New York first, then like I'll guarantee myself multiple bar admissions. And also New York is UBE. So it was kind of nice to have that as well. Yeah. So I will take the attorney transfer exam at some point.
Yeah, but that's good to
Unfortunately.
have. I mean, a lot of these places are just now recognizing reciprocity, and they didn't for a while. So, like, being a Division I runner, like, how do you feel that helped your mindset, like, in terms of being a lawyer? Like, do you feel like are you competitive? Did that help does that help you today? Like, be a lawyer, like, be competitive, that sort of thing? That was a very jumbled question. I'm sorry the way that.
I think it's hard to answer the question when it comes to sports because I've just done it my whole life.
Yeah.
So I would never be able to like tell you how it would be without it because I just only know life with it. I think what athletics has done is like given me a sense of discipline that I think a lot of people don't have. It has made me more regimented, and I think it does make me competitive, but it makes me intentional. And one of the best ways to win a race is to win a race before the gun even goes off. To just like kill somebody's confidence with your own confidence or with your
Really?
past performance. Absolutely. I
How do you
remember
do
once
that?
in
Give
high
me a
school.
tip. How do we do that?
I mean, listen, I just remember once in high school, this girl like turns to one of my teammates and goes, I'm racing for second. I won already. The game, it was over. Like, I mean, realistically, I was going to beat her anyway. But if she had a chance to beat me that day, if I fell, if I was sick, she wasn't going to beat me because she was already screwed in her head. So I think it gives me like a bit of a chip on my shoulder.
That? That's like, why would you say that?
I guess I was that good. I don't know.
Wow.
But
Oh,
what
all right,
I think,
I get you.
but I think it's like establishing yourself, like, and seeing the longevity in the career and like knowing you're going to be seeing like the same competitors like that I see on the start line. I'm going to be seeing the same ADAs. I'm going to be kissing ass to this. I would never say that. I'm always going to suck up to the same judges.
Yeah.
Like you need to build yourself and you need to build a reputation. And I think I was able to, I don't know, have that sort of foresight coming into this career.
Right.
And then of course it makes me competitive. I've always been a competitive person, But realistically, like one thing that I've had to adapt when it comes to the law is like winning looks different for so many different people and in so many different cases. And it's like putting your own ego to the side and like also like seeing what's best for your client and what your client wants. And that's what's great about defense is I'm always beholden to the wants of my clients.
Yeah. So what about law school and the competitive nature? Like, do you feel like it was very competitive or were people more collaborative? And did you feel like a competitive law student at Brooklyn?
You know what? I feel very blessed having gone to Brooklyn. I feel like it was definitely more of a collaborative environment. I think I kind of rode the curve. I know I'm not a top 10% brain. Like I've never had an issue in school. I've never really struggled in school, but I've never been like this person that could just breeze by and like do nothing and just like score top. So I knew I wasn't top 10%. I also knew I wasn't a bottom 10% brain. So I knew like even, just based on like, I don't know, just my own natural abilities, I'm not going to be at the bottom of my class.
Right.
I knew I wanted to go into public interest. So for me, I just wanted to do like well, and I rode the curve. I wasn't going to go crazy and try to just like ruin my life to get in the top 10%, which I likely wasn't going to get anyway.
Right.
So I made a great group of friends. I don't think Brooklyn specifically, is as competitive as other law schools. And I had a very much collaborative experience in law school, but I think, I had the advantage of knowing what I wanted to do. And that not being big law.
So this might be one that you don't want to answer, but the difference between the student at like Columbia and then going to Brooklyn Law, like, because I feel like was there like a difference between like I don't want to say caliber, but like the type of students who went to each place?
100%.
Okay.
Listen, I could talk about this forever. I'm so glad I had that juxtaposition, right? Like I loved how pretentious Columbia was. Like I loved being part of that group and like part of that like bourgeois that was Columbia. And it was great. And like, listen, I'm always going to have that, that name on my resume and I have the diploma hanging out, my dad's great. But like, they're not real. Like they talk, I don't know. They're all, all right, now I'm going to get caught first. They're all extremely preachy, right? Like they're so preachy. They're all these activists and whatnot. And they talk about helping the greater good, being part of the people without realizing that they only interact with maybe the top 0.1% of the world. And we're only really preaching to the top 0.1% of the world. So I'm like, you're not advocating for anybody other than the top 0.1% of the world because like you're not exposed to anything. Like you don't give yourself that exposure to like other parts of society, other parts of New York City. You think you're in Harlem. You're in Morningside Heights.
And look, like, let's be honest, little old Sydney went and proved her point and she became a public defender. So that makes perfect sense.
And I wasn't the one preaching either, but I'm the only one actually practicing what you're preaching, realistically.
That's it.
So I think like, I think I love both, but I definitely see a difference, and I think it's like less to do with the individual person and more to do as like the collective, like obviously like the collective at Columbia. Like a lot of people would talk about things like social capital at Columbia, which I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And now like, I get it. Like, oh, I got to send my kid to Choate now. Otherwise like my kid's going to lack social capital. But you know what? No, because capital is quantity, right? And quantity is diversity. It's the public school system, in my opinion. So
yeah, there's you could probably write a nice article about that. I think.
Yeah.
So you've been to like 60 countries, right? Like how does that help you with your current clientele? Like does that like help you see things differently, like connect with your clients? Does that help at all? Like in terms of diversity? Is there one place or experience that sort of fundamentally change your perspective on justice?
So I think it helps a lot when it's like you have a country or client from some like rogue country. It's like, oh, I've been there. Or it's like, oh, you can like say like, I don't know, like for example, Grenada. Like you have a lot of clients from like Grenada. And I'm like, oh, I've eaten oil down. Who knows what oil down is, but someone from Grenada. And it's just like that. It allows you to connect more, and I think it, gives me a broader perspective in general, which definitely I think subconsciously allows me to be more empathetic as well, because I've just been exposed. And like when I travel, at least in my early 20s, mid 20s, and like a little bit in my late 20s, like a lot of hostels, right? A lot of hostels, a lot of public transportation. I did it rugged. I did it raw. And I think it put me in positions where I was obviously like with local people, where local people were helping me. And then like I've always just had an affinity for people. And that's part of the reason I like learned all the languages. It's just easier to connect with people if you can like obviously speak their language. So, I mean, I've had so many experiences where like, I don't know, I don't know how it's really affected my view on justice, but like what I've learned from traveling is the places that scare me the most are the places that lack due process. So like I was in Brazil and it was probably the only place I've ever felt unsafe. Realistically, like I traveled the Middle East alone as like a woman who's like half Jewish with a Jewish last name. Never once felt unsafe because there's just not a propensity for crime there, right? Like the individual itself, I wouldn't say is like a Jew hater or something, right? They're just like regular people are just like they're regular nice people. I genuinely believe in the goodness of people. You go somewhere like Brazil, like I still went at the time of my life, high propensity for crime, see the robberies, whatever. That's scary. Like Russia, I'm not even gonna go because that place like lacks due process, and that to me is the scariest thing ever.
I love that point. I think that's such a good point. And I do. And by the way, what's the other half besides Jewish?
Italian.
So, all right, that's awesome.
Shock.
I think talking about that, I think, even if it doesn't help you see justice a different way, like I would think that having all those conversations and all those experiences help sort of like your mind shift in a way that is unavailable to like other people who are in your position doing similar things. Because I think the more you talk and have conversations and meet with people, the more empathetic you become, and the more ready you become to take on, be there for a criminal defendant and hear their story and, help defend them to the fullest. I mean, that would just be my opinion on going to.
Yeah. And I think like I said, I do believe in the goodness of people.
Yep.
And I think it's like almost to my detriment. Like I definitely can't believe I haven't been taken, to be quite honest. My fiance would just like hate to hear this, but like,
What do you say?
my fiance would just hate to hear that. Like, I just can't believe like I haven't been taken, like, hey, can I offer you a ride? Okay. Like everything you're not supposed to do, I've probably done. Right. And like, I think, and I've knock on wood, I've always had great experiences, been in like local homes, like eating, just like, people are very warm. Like I was in Oman and this like old man at a gas station is like, do you want to come over for fish? And I'm like, yes, I do. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm going to drive though. I'm not going to get in his car. This is like in my mind, me being smart. So he's like, do you want me to drive you? I'm like, no, I'm going to drive. So it's like him and his wife ends up amazing. First they gave me like,
so that's kind of a bit.
But yeah, you never know. But like they gave me some fresh juice. I'm like watching them drink it first. I'm like, first. Right?
Like switch.
I'm like,
did you switch the cups with them?
Yeah, right. Me thinking I'm being safe by like, no, you drink it. But I think I also definitely do that in my career, right? And I think like I'm a highly gullible person. I think I am very trusting. But someone once told me like keep that. Because if you can keep that almost like spark of innocence and like have that like blind trust for someone you're representing, like you obviously need to be smart. You need to like have your eye on like the bullshitters and like you realistically need the facts in order to properly defend somebody and you need the truth.
Right.
But if you could just still believe in their innocence or in what you're saying, like that's everything, and that's the type of advocacy that like, an accused individual like needs.
Yeah.
And deserves.
And you've described pretrial incarceration as antithetical, did I say that word right? To innocent until proven guilty, which is like a keystone of our system. So why is that principle such a driving force for you? And like, how does it show up in ways that you approach your cases today? Like
talking about my biggest fear being in a situation where I feel like I didn't get due process, I'm not going to get due process and getting, jailed in Russia, where like God only knows like if I even get an arraignment, I don't know. Like that is horrifying. So imagine being, innocent or for that matter, legally innocent, right? If you are accused of a crime, you are legally innocent unless you plead guilty or you're convicted.
Yeah.
But you're held on bail right? Like, and you can't pay the bail. Assuming the prosecutor does their job, they indict you in a timely manner, they file discovery in a timely manner, you're literally sitting in jail as a legally innocent human. And that is so unbelievably, like, it's backwards. It's guilt.
Yeah.
You're presuming guilt, right?
Right.
You're presuming guilt when they're legally innocent until proven guilty. So okay, if you take a step back from not being lawyerly, you can understand, like, all right, someone with great evidence is accused of like a very heinous crime, right? Like in New York, at least, judges aren't supposed to use public safety as like a determining factor as to whether or not they're releasing somebody. The whole point is, like, will you return to court? But the rationale that judges use is that you're being accused of such a bad crime that holds such a bad potential sentence, that is motive to flee. Therefore, we need to incarcerate you, right? So I guess, sure, I can understand that as like an individual, as like a patron of, society where like bad things do happen and like not everybody is innocent. But, when I think as a public defender, you have the unique opportunity to like speak one-on-one with a human being, right? And like people don't just commit crimes. There's always a story. Even like the worst complaints ever, there's always a story. So it's like, it's then my job, my duty, and like my absolute mission to make sure at the least, like your rights are protected. And one of your rights and one of the things you're promised as an American is being innocent until you're proven guilty. And if you're incarcerated pre-trial, even though you're still technically legally innocent, that's not your rights, in my opinion. That's guilt until you decide that you're guilty and you get time served. I don't know. So
yeah.
Tough.
No, I think that it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's kind of like strike a balance somehow, if it's a heinous crime. I mean, you don't want somebody on the street or whatever, but I agree with, I think public defenders, as well as even in housing court, when we dealt with it, they're always, legal aid, they're looking for like the procedural defects and like whatever might have happened. So yeah, that's obviously, I think that's a good approach to the defense. So you once said you didn't want to be put in a box or like beholden to the powers that be. I don't know if you remember any of these quotes, but so which is one reason you chose being a criminal defense attorney over prosecution?
So I really want to be a prosecutor so I can have a badge. Like, and that was quite literally the only reason. Like, I just really wanted to carry a badge around. And I was trying to convince myself that like, this is what I want to do. But, I think my dad told me something. He's like, you'd rather have like 10 guilty people run free than one innocent person behind bars. And I was like, yeah, yep, 100%. That's it. That is it. Like, that is why I chose defense. And, once I started like doing my research into both, what I learned is like a prosecutor needs like permission to breathe before they do anything. Like, let me ask my supervisor if I could like inhale oxygen right now. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like they have no power to do anything. And then also like the burden is on them, right? I, as a defense attorney, can make mistakes and be like, judge, I made a mistake. Don't abridge my client's rights because I'm an idiot. The people don't have that same ability, to mess around. And you know what? I do feel bad for them. And like my colleagues would be like, screw them, don't even say that. But sometimes I do feel bad for them because it's like, like you said, the defects in the discovery or something.
Yeah.
Half the time it's not even their fault. It's like they're texting officers like, please send me the memo books. Please send me your body worn camera, please. And they're just relying on so many people to like do their own job. They lack so much power. Or it's like my first trial I won, it was a mistrial that they didn't represent. Client was still innocent, but not the point. And they prepped their witness and the witness still just could not get it right? They said something they weren't supposed to say. Prosecutor loses the case. It's not even really his fault. It's just because the witness is an idiot. Right. So I love that witness, love him for me. Yeah. But no, they're put in a box. I think they're put in a box. They're put in the box by procedure, and they're put in the box because of like whatever policy is being implemented by whatever DA is in power, right? Like all the different protocol. My job remains consistent. My priorities are always the same. Theirs aren't. Their shit.
You gotta obfuscate the evidence and make it seem like, you know, you gotta kind of show the holes in the evidence, right? I mean, you gotta just
Absolutely
throw that curveball, make them be like, oh, well, wait a second, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the best curated events in the legal industry, run by Morgan & Morgan, some of the greatest speakers, literally opening the blueprint, telling you exactly how they've become the largest law firm in the country.
If you want to make moves, if you want to meet the best of the best, they're here at RevCon.
I think I took away probably about 10 nuggets that I'm going to bring back into my personal injury practice.
I was being very informative. I've already learned a couple of really good tricks and techniques.
The information that they shared was very insightful. I'm really excited about what Matt was talking about for future strategic initiatives that they have. I'm excited to see what they do.
Morgan always puts on the best events, top notch. You know, we learned so much from their team, so many real action items that we can put into place.
Matt Morgan was the keynote. He was probably the best speaker and gave us really good business advice about our law firm.
This is my second RevCon that I've attended, and it just keeps getting better and better.
RevCon, the recovery revolution, will take place in New York City on September 29th. Visit Morgan and Morgan at forthepeople.com.
Sydney, like, tell us what your approach is. Like, when you meet a client early on, like, how do you build that trust so soon?
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, this is horrible. But no, it's not. Sometimes, you know, I'm like,
Say it again. I can't hear your.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
No. So, and sometimes I joke around in arraignments with the clients, you know, especially if it's such a low level crime, and probably shouldn't. But no, I think it's like your affect affects them fully.
Sure.
And, you know, I have a little bit of a script. I hate asking, like, how are you? It's like going to the doctor and they're like, how are you? I'm like, how do you think I am? I'm here. This is horrible. This is the last place on earth I want to be. No, I'm miserable. So when they're behind bars, I'm not like, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm Sydney. Like, I'm here to help you. All right. Like, and you know, you always get the background information. I like to like lay everything out there. Like, we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about the case, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen in front of the judge. Okay. And, you know, we go through, we get to know each other. And, you know, if they're from a country I've been, we're going to talk about the country for a second.
Sure.
You know what? Like, someone's born in like 95. Oh my God, I'm born in 95. What's your sign? Something, you know, you
were born.
You know, like, you have to like personalize it a little bit. You talked about, but you also want to give a roadmap. You don't want there to be any fears, right? You're getting out today. This is what we're here to discuss. This is not about guilt or innocence, right? This is about getting you out of here and just prioritizing like getting them out. And I think like, you don't have to do anything special to like make them feel comfortable with you. As long as you're comfortable, you're yourself, you build trust, and also being real with them, which I think being from LA was like a little hard at the beginning. People call it fake. I call it friendly. But you know, sometimes if something is very serious, I'll go in there and be like, I can't bullshit you right now. Like, this is the worst case scenario, and this very well might happen.
Right.
And I think that was hard for me at the beginning,
right?
You know, because like, again, me believing in the goodness of people, I would also believe in the goodness of the judges. So it's like, you want to temper expectations, but like, you also try to put yourself in their situation. You also want to give them some hope, you know, because hope is what you need, you know, depending on the case. But yeah, it's being very pointed, I would say, especially in arraignment, which, you know, for those that don't know, the first time you're confronted with the charges against you, like, there's only two things at stake, really. Your liberty, pending disposition, and orders of protection. And it's like keeping it very focused on that and what we're going to do to fight the case together, letting them know you're on the same team.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like you know what you're doing. I mean, it's like you've been there a little while now. It's on, how long have you been doing the defense right now in Brooklyn?
Almost 4 years.
4 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we need more defenders, public defenders, as a society as a whole? Like, are there not enough? There's not enough out there.
There's not. There's never enough. Like, listen, crime doesn't stop. When the economy crashes, people are still doing things.
So, I want to talk about your Uber initiative real quick. So, when you were in LA at the public defender's office, you noticed that people were being reincarcerated simply because they couldn't get to court. They had an issue with that. So, like, how'd you come up with this idea to like, well, first, how did you first identify the problem? Was there a day like somebody was like, hey, judge, like I just couldn't get here in time. I had never ride, and they like soaking wet. It was raining out. It was like whatever. How that happened?
Basically.
Yeah.
No, truly. I remember. So basically, like what started is like all the bail reform. It was great. So basically, like it was a little different. California was a case. I forget what the case is called, but the idea was not to criminalize homelessness, right? It was not to set bail on somebody simply because like they're homeless, they might not come to court or someone can't pay. It was like this holistic approach, right? Like taking your ability to pay into consideration when setting bail. New York, it was statutory, right? Here's a list of crimes where you can't set bail, right? And if you're not being accused of any of these crimes, like by law, bail can't be set. So more people are being released on their own recognizance or under some forms of supervision. And people were showing up to court. Like it was a positive thing. Way more people were showing up to court than I think was anticipated. But with obviously higher volume, there were still people that were not showing up. So I remember it was one day. There was a client and like we called, hey, you have court. And he's like, holy shit, I'm on my way. I forgot. He shows up soaking wet. Like you said, soaking wet.
Oh, wow.
He was sweating because he biked. And I was in LA. So where I was airport court. And LA already doesn't have great public transportation. And the public transportation that LA does have, sometimes you have to drive to it. So like it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So this guy had biked on the freeway, right? So he's like on the freeway, he bikes, gets to court. I remember thinking like, man, I wish I could have just called an Uber for him. And I remember there was another lady who I couldn't remember if she needed to get back or she had to come to court, but I'm pretty sure she needed to go home. And she had asked like for help. And I wanted to give her a ride, but I couldn't because I was a city employee. So then there's the liability and whatnot. And I was like, man, I wish I could just call her an Uber. And I thought about it. I was like, why not? I was like, wait, what if I asked Uber for money so we could now call Ubers for clients to get to court? And I just had this idea and I really wanted to do something in policy. And I was thinking of different things I was passionate about. And I was really focused on like the veteran population for a while or the youth.
But you wrote like this 20-page manifesto.
I did. So
I picture you like with a candle, like at 2 a.m, and you're just like, and then you send it in and it's just like, you have 20 plus pages like,
it was absolutely.
Everybody should know that. First of all, everybody should know that you wrote that yourself, 20 pages.
Yes.
Like you didn't, that's pretty passionate about like what you're doing and helping people. And I think that's like really a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the pretrial population. And that was the population I ended up settling on because I worked in post-conviction as well. And then I remember when I, was then applying to my final internships, I'm like, no, I want to do pretrial. And then it was like, ding, ding, ding. You want to do pretrial, right? Like pretrial population. And yeah, no, I wrote this and it was it happened so quickly because I wanted to just obviously give like all the statistics and explain what was going on, put it in layman's terms. And I just Googled like, what is like the Uber social impact manager? And it's like, these are 3 potential emails for someone who may potentially like work in this department. And it works. And it was like one of those things where I wrote it, I sent it, I read it back after, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many typos. But I'm like, whatever, like substance over form. Yeah. And she loved the idea. She's like, all right, here's the money. It sends me a tax form. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, to make a DBA. So it was, I ended up having to work backwards, right? So I got the money and then I needed to get like, I couldn't incorporate at this point. It's like way too quick. So I had to get like a fiscal sponsor. And then they had given me vouchers. And because it was vouchers, it was Uber personal, not Uber business. And I'll spare you the details, but we basically had to create this team on how best to use these vouchers. Yeah. I ended up partnering with a nonprofit, giving it to the nonprofit. We had an idea of what we were going to do. I ended up connecting to, an ATI like an alternates to incarceration program in Brooklyn as well, where I met this guy, Brett Taylor, who's done like amazing work all throughout the United States, now like working even internationally, who had like helped start, legal aid in Brooklyn, like before it was even cool. So he really helped a lot when it came to getting a job as a public defender. So like everything ended up kind of coming full circle for me.
Yeah.
With, like that network of people. And it was a wild experience. And then like I had gotten reached out to indirectly by Gaston, the district attorney in LA, who's basically like, I want to be innovative and like get people to come to court. Like, let's collab essentially. So he had sent me his proposal. And I remember his proposal was very much like what I hate about the government. Not that I hate Gaston or anything, but the government just like doesn't seem to handle money right. They're like, well, if we do more childcare programs, then, people can drop off their kids and then make their court appearances. I mean, I agree we need more childcare programs, but and this is what's going to get like the mass population to come to court. I'm a little more like, let's go to the private sector. They have so much money that they want to spend, that they want to write off, and let's make them pay for our problems.
Right.
We're just a good tax write-off for them. So it was one of those projects where I had to work backwards, and it is all such a blur at this point. Like,
amazing. How that was what, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2021. That's 5 years ago.
So is that something that you're going to try to continue, or like there's a need for? Do you think you're in?
So, yeah, I mean, I've heard other places ended up like implementing similar programs. I like to say I'm the first, but
you're the pioneer.
Yeah. No, but I gave it to a nonprofit because at that point I was going back to school, starting my 3L. I had finished law school in 2.5 years, took the semester off to go on Survivor. So I was like, I don't have time to run this project. Gave it to them. Ended up getting an email from Uber, like, I don't know, sometime later when I started work, being like, hey, I'm no longer your contact. This is your contact. I'm like moving to Switzerland. I'm like, okay. Like, let me know about XYZ. It's like, oh, we already told Becca. I'm like, damn, I really feel like a CEO now. It's like the nonprofit was already given the information before me, right? Like, it was already worked out. So now I think it's
so they gave it to them before they let you pass it off, sort of thing.
Before they let me know. So I was like, you know what?
You should get a plaque or like free Ubers for life or something, man. Like
would be nice. I think I was like, you know what? Because I had it on my phone because I was helping doing the pilot project. Like, this is actually so funny. It's a good story, but so bad. My first Uber client, I remember I was like, I want to call this Uber. Like, we are using the money and I remember he had to come from San Diego. And, it was going to be an expensive Uber, but this is the point. We have the money. Let's use it. Let's get him to tour. So, oh my gosh, I remember he's like, hey, can you call me an Uber to like this address? And instead of back to San Diego instead. And I'm like, I mean, it's going to save a ton of money. So I'm like, I guess, because there was a lot of conversation on like, should it be one way or two ways? I said one way, figure it out on your way back. You got to court.
Yeah, that's smart.
We decided on 2 ways because a lot of people would come to court because they were scared they wouldn't be able to like get back somewhere on time. So whatever. So I'm like, sure, I'll get you the Uber. I typed in the address. I'm like, Bottega Louie. I'm like, that's like a fancy Italian restaurant. I'm like, how indigent is this guy if he's going to Bottega Louie and is going to find his way back to San Diego? So I was like, did I get conned on my first client? Like, God damn it. I know. That was like,
did they have to show anything to show that like they needed the help, or was it like a kind of a trust like
I mean, if you qualify for a public defender, presumably
that's true.
You just don't have money.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it reminds me of like, because I work in the housing industry, and it kind of reminds me of like a voucher. I mean, I don't do a lot. We do vouchers. We're more like we're like state aided, like, but it kind of reminds me of like a sort of voucher thing, like in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. So that's great. Good job, Sydney. That's a really cool initiative. I think you do feel that you should be very proud of that. And,
thank you.
You should keep talking about that because it's a very important initiative. So let's switch gears, if that's okay with you. If we have time, and talk about the tribe and the tribe speaking and Survivor, and how did that game come into your life at first?
Yeah, so it was during my gap years. I was like, I want to go on The Amazing Race.
Right.
Like, that sounds like a dream, and I've always wanted to go on. So I applied with one of my friends, and then it was like 2 months later, I get a call. I'm like, CBS? I thought I was getting like like discovered because my friend was like an actress and I did a self-tape with her. I'm like, am I getting discovered through her self-tape? Like, no, you applied for the Amazing Race. I'm like, oh my God. They're like, well, we're not calling you for the Amazing Race. I'm like, all right, then why are you calling me? Like, but like, would you ever do Survivor? And I'm like, hell no. No way. I don't want to starve on an island. Like, I like food too much. But then I'm like, you know what? Obviously I said, yeah, like I would entertain, any opportunity.
Yeah, right. Sure.
So I'm like, let me just go through the casting process and see what happens. Like the odds of getting cast are so low anyway. And as a fan, I much preferred Survivor. I thought it was a much better show.
So you
than
were a
Amazing
fan
Race.
of Survivor?
Love. Yeah, we watched it growing up. It's a family show, and my family was a perfect target. Every Wednesday, Thursday, it switched. At one point, we watched Survivor, and like I wouldn't say I'm a super fan, but I was definitely a fan of the show. So, yeah, what ended up happening is you went through the whole process, and it was during COVID. I was in LA for March 2020 is when I cast in person.
Yep.
And then I get on. But they kept pushing it back. And I was supposed to be on season 42 because it was the summer cycle. And they kept pushing it back. And then they called me, would you do 41? So I'd have to take a semester off school. But I had gotten that internship at the LA Public Defender's Office. So I'm like, you know what? I think I can still graduate on time if I do that for credit. And if I do this, and if I take an extra credit here. And yeah, so I ended up taking a semester off doing season 41 of Survivor. And yeah, it definitely launched a different aspect of what has become my life.
You're out there for like 2 hours and like all of a sudden you start getting hungry. Like, what's that? What's like the first hunger pang like? I know this is crazy. I just thought of that. Like, because sometimes when I'm like, man, like I have a snack, I'm like, I could never be on Survivor. It's like kind of a thing.
No, it was actually like so funny because I was freaking out. So I was living with a Muslim girl and she was like, bro, how do you do Ramadan? Right? I'm like, I feel like Survivor's gonna be like Ramadan. And she's like, dude, I'm telling you, you'll be fine. She's like, she was telling me, and this rings true. She's like, during Ramadan, like, you're not eating, so you don't feel hunger pain the way you feel in your day-to-day life. Because food's not coming. So you're not thinking about it. Because it's a mind-body connection. She's like, yes, you're hungry, but it's not the same hunger pain. And that's exactly what Survivor's like. Like you're starving, like you're constantly hungry, but you don't feel those like pangs because you're not gonna eat. So it's like sometimes you think about it. It's like you're working, you're busy. Then you look at your clock and you're like, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock. It's lunchtime. You're like, man, I actually do feel hungry because you're about to eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People, that's what it's like.
Exactly. So I'm like, it was like you're starving, but like you're not feeling those pangs. I remember because that first boat where they do the intros and everybody's like, it's the worst. You're there for like hours just going in circles, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I felt my hunger pang. I'm like, oh no, I ate like 3 hours ago. I'm feeling hungry now.
Oh, really?
The moment you get to the island, like you don't feel that pang anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, tell us about like the strategy and like the relationships and like, does any of that transfer over to your career?
Man, I'm very, very happy to say it does not. Absolutely. If I was affected in any way, shape, or form by reality TV to where it like bled over into my personal and professional life, I would be disbarred at this point. I mean, like being on Survivor, it's like, it is applauded to lie. It is also applauded to like be loyal. It's applauded to have enemies. It's applauded to have friends. It's like, you just live in a world that like, there's just no rules. You want to talk about anarchy? Like, that is Survivor. And it's like obviously ever changing. And I don't know. My strategy was just like make it to the next day. Like I'm like, this show is a show of twists and turns and something's going to happen I can't control. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly how I got eliminated. But I was just like, I got to make it to tomorrow and I'll figure it out.
Do people like hate each other when they like after the show when they
oh yeah, half my cast is blocked. I like blocked half of them.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like them. If I didn't like you on the show, here's the thing. All right, you are who you are.
Yeah.
If you lie on the show, I don't think you're necessarily a liar in real life, sure. But you're never gonna escape your essence. Like I'm still gonna be me, right? Maybe I'm a little dumbed down version. Maybe I'm like putting on a bit of a character, but you can still tell someone's like essence. Yeah. And it's like, if I didn't like you on the show, I don't like you in real life. There's some people where I'm like, okay, I found you, like there was this guy on my tribe who I found unbelievably annoying. Like this guy was actually just like, his presence irked me. And Anyway, but I was able to, I know he's a nice guy. Like I know separate to like whatever. Like I knew he's a family man. He's a great guy. And I believe he's a great person. I just don't really like him. Some people I'm like, you suck. Outside the show, you still suck.
Wow. So that's interesting because I would feel like all the, hey, we had this crazy experience, this like once in a lifetime experience, like that's going to supersede me thinking how much you suck, like in real, like on the show. But I guess not.
I think most people would say that. I think I'm still salty.
So I think that that's like kind of a genuine, I think that's like a genuine take actually.
Thank you.
Do you feel like once you got cast, like you heard from like a ton of people from your past or whatever, like for some reason, like, hey, like I love this show. And like, you know, you had like, you know, people from like high school or like whatever, just like reaching out to you. And like, does that happen?
Absolutely. You know, especially on something like Survivor, where it's like so prolific, you know, and
Totally.
people definitely reached out. And like, I think it was fun for my family too. Like, you know, people in town, like run into my dad. He has the same like couple restaurants, like, your daughter.
Totally.
Or like he wears the merch. And then
He does.
people like, oh, of course. And then people say like, oh, what's your connection to the show? Oh, like I love that show. Like, oh, my daughter was on it. Oh my God, who's your daughter? So
Yeah.
it's always a conversation starter. Like
Totally.
it's a cool notch on the belt. It's like I have something called the life resume, and it was something that just like looked great on the life resume.
I love that. I think that 100%. Do you see yourself in any more like, if they called again to do some more reality TV, would you be into it? Like maybe like a different thing or like I don't know, any of those shows. Like, to be honest, I don't watch like a ton of them anymore. I used to be like when I was like back in my heyday, like I used to like be into like Real World and like that. I was like, they have to cast it up here in Maine. I'm in Mass now, but I was like, they got to cast it in Maine. I got to be a part of this thing. Like, I love the Real World. Like, you know, like it was just, I don't know, it was cool. So if they came back, would you do something else, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did the challenge.
Right.
I was on season 41 of the challenge.
How did that come about? Like, did they reach out for you? They're like, hey, we have this spot. Like, what happened there?
Yeah, they had actually called me 2 years after I had finished Survivor, and they're like, we want you to do the show. And I was like, I actually declined because I was just starting my job. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel an emotional attachment to the show. It wasn't something that I just really felt like I wanted to put my life on hold for. They ended up calling me back 2 years later to where, similar to Survivor, I'm like, let me just go through the process and see what happens. And then I got cast, and then I was like, all right, well, let me ask my job, obviously. And then they let me go. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going. And it was like horrible, 0 out of 10 experience. I was runner up, which was very good, but
Whoa. The challenge?
yeah, on the challenge. Yes.
Is MTV, did something happen? Or are they not around? I mean, like,
Yeah, they're not around. Or it's like they're only around for like one thing. I don't know, but it's not really
it's, you know, TV's weird these days. Like, honestly, like, just because, I don't know. It just feels like it's not the way it used to be, right? So, yeah, I thought I read something about MTV, like not being around.
No, I don't think it's a thing anymore.
So
But
tell me about the chat. Like, so you didn't like it wasn't.
oh my God, 0 out of 10. Oh my God, it was horrible. I mean, the problem with the challenge, and this goes back to your question, it's so long. I was there for like 11, 12 weeks.
What?
Yes, it is. And there's so much downtime. And they don't give you books. You don't obviously don't have your phone. You don't have anything. You have notebooks. Like I am like losing my mind. And they want you to lose your mind. That's the point. But, you know, as someone who's like used to being like intellectually stimulated, and I'm talking to a bunch of like real world like idiots, no offense, love half of them, not all of them. But I'm like, God, I'm losing my mind. So I was, and also like the stress of the challenges, like I don't believe that they, you know, want me to be safe. Like I don't think they have my best interest. Like I understand we're making a TV show, and I really didn't enjoy it. But
where did that one take place?
That one was in Chile.
Okay.
Yeah. So would I do more TV? The question is, or the answer is yes. However, it can't be 12 weeks. It needs to be like a month or shorter. Right. That's like a big, like, it needs to adapt with the lifestyle. I can't go take a quarter of my year off. And I'm also like, I'm getting married in the fall, and like, God willing, you know, have kids soon. So like, I can't be lactating either. That's my other rule. As long as I'm not lactating and it's less than a month, then yes, I will go on another show.
Mazel tov. I love it.
Thank you.
That's really cool. So you have like an incredibly like diverse life, like lawyer, athlete, traveler, reality television competitor. So how do you stay motivated, like to seek out new challenges, new travels, like new? I mean, I think you're embarking on a very exciting part of your life, like being engaged in January and like what's to come. So I think like you kind of, in a sense, as I'm talking, I think of this, you kind of, in a sense, like don't leave much behind. I don't know if like there's always more, maybe, but how do you stay motivated?
I think when it comes to traveling, the more you see, the more you realize there is to see. Like,
Yeah.
And that's like you go to a country, you're like, all right, I'm going to hit this, and this. And then once you're there, you learn of like the 10 places you also could have gone and also missed. So you're just like, oh my gosh. So like, I think that like cup will never be filled. Like I have like an arbitrary goal of like 100 countries. And then like, I want to see all 7 wonders of the world, or modern wonders. I'm at 6. So still motivated to hit more. Yeah. So I think that's just something where as long as you have curiosity for the world, there's always going to be something else to see. And then I think when it comes to, like TV, there's always going to be more experiences, like, especially when you have a personality like mine and my good looks and my athletic abilities, I'm always going to be a good option to be cast. So if there's an opportunity that I want, probably going to get it. And when it comes to the law, it's like every case is different. And like, I've been doing felonies now for like 2 years, but only recently have I started doing like major felonies. And it's like, done a misdemeanor trial, like there's so much more I haven't done. Like sure, on paper, like I finished law school, I've been practicing law, I went on TV. There's more TV, there's more to travel, there's more cases, like there's more litigation. Like I want to litigate. Like I want to my goal is to get as much trial experience as I can and then run for DA. And then I'm gonna be all these losers' boss.
That's awesome. I love it.
That's the plan.
So if you could change one thing about the criminal justice system right now, like what would it be?
Okay, like I know this sounds okay. It's gonna be it's so little. I don't believe in precatory fines, fees, and surcharges. When you are convicted of a criminal case, you have to pay a fine or a fee or a surcharge. And that is insane to me. So like, I think people would probably expect me to say like, no bail, or like, something like, I don't know, no mandatory minimums or something. Like, yeah, maybe I would change mandatory minimums. That's a good one. Yeah, I don't like the sentencing guidelines, but when you look at the criminal justice system, and this might be controversial, on paper, it's kind of perfect. There's a lot of safeguards in place, right? And everything from like the process to the burden of proof, right? The burden of proof is extremely high. And to even get to the point of trial, so much has had to happen. The only thing we can never really account for is human error. So what do we do, right? Like, what do we really improve? And I think there's, micro things we could change, but like the system at large, it's hard because like even like judges being appointed has a reason. The jury being a reflection of the community, there's like reason behind it. Like, a defense attorney having to listen to the client has a reason. The prosecutor not being the victim's lawyer, but the lawyer of the people has a reason. And they all are so sound and they all make sense and they all add to these safeguards, which in my opinion, make the system on paper perfect. I think the hardest thing and the hardest barrier that I have to overcome as a criminal defense attorney is when you do have someone incarcerated, it's never about like justice. It's never, ever about justice. If you're incarcerated pending disposition, it's always about getting you out.
Yeah.
It's just about getting you out. It's pleading you guilty if we have to plead you guilty, even if you're not guilty, to get you out of jail. And it's like, what can we do to stop that? I mean, end pretrial incarceration, but I mean, you can't really do that because jails, I'm not a full abolitionist. Like, I don't think jail is the answer, but I'm not an abolitionist. And, I think I actually wrote a paper on this. I think jails are just part of our culture, unfortunately. I don't try to tell someone all the reasons we should get rid of jails. Like I tried to write a paper on why we should have jails. right? I'm like, I'm going to try to challenge myself and like to think opposite or to write something and to argue opposite of how I like actually feel most of the time. Because like I said, not an abolitionist. And I couldn't. I had to switch because like there isn't really compelling reasons when you actually look at numbers.
Right.
And my conclusion was that it's a cultural thing. Like if you ask anybody, like, what do we do if we don't have jail? No one will give you an answer.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I know that's a lot. Do you have any blog posts? I want to put one of your blog posts on my website. Do you want to write one for us?
I can write one for you.
On your downtime.
Sure.
No, that's great. So going from LA to Columbia, Brooklyn Law, like what is your lawyer stuff being on reality TV? Like what does your lawyer story mean to you today?
Wow. No, I think my lawyer story today, it's been fun. I think like you've definitely allowed me to like dig into like the past that I didn't think we would even talk about. Like I didn't think we'd talk about the travels, college, even just like being from California. And I think it's just like really cool to be able to share that we're not all sticks in the mud. You know, my lawyer story is always going to shed light on the criminal legal system, we like to call it. And I think that's, you know, what I want to be known for at the end of the day. Based on, you know, everything I've done in my life, it's, you know, being a good lawyer and like representing these people is what is the most important thing for me.
Yeah, totally. It's so important. So one more question. If the average person spent the day sitting next to you in an arraignment, what do you think would surprise them most?
I think what would surprise me absolutely with my clients.
Say that again. Sorry, Sydney, you cut out a little.
Yeah, sorry. I think if someone were to spend the day with me at arraignments, what would surprise them the most is how candid I am. And that's with the clients and with the judges. I make some very entertaining records. Whether or not it has anything to do with the case or anything to do with gassing myself up, I think people are always shocked with like how I can laugh with somebody, you know, who is, you know, in, you know, behind bars. And I think they'd be surprised on how much fun we can have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I believe it. It's amazing. One more. All right. Just one more. What would your fellow castmates, what word would they describe you as? Use to describe you. What word would your fellow castmates use to describe you?
They used to call me Psycho Sid. On both
call you?
Psycho Sid. I know. I think ridiculous is the word. Ridiculous or cocky. And then maybe psycho.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
What's next is I have some court tomorrow. Gonna ask judge to exonerate bail.
Nice.
And, you know, fun stuff.
Well, is there anything else you want to say to the Lawyer Stories community tonight?
Well, give me a follow on Instagram at Queen Sydney. Support my career as a struggling public defender from Beverly Hills.
Sydney Segal, such an honor. Stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.